YouTube, and welcome to my review of the iPhone 12 Pro Max. I've been using this phone since it was released in October of 2020, so about 6 months now. I have some observations about this Apple flagship phone. It is a premier phone in every aspect, in every sense of the word. It is a flagship top line phone. It's a very expensive phone, and it's a very unusual phone in terms of the capabilities that it brings to the table compared to the other iPhones in the line. I'd like to talk about some of those benefits and some of those options with this phone. Compare it to the standard line and talk about who this phone is really for. Who does the price make sense for? And maybe that's you. That's kind of what this video is about. All right, as I mentioned, it is a very expensive phone. So let's talk about how expensive. The 128 gig is $1,100. The 256 gig is $1,200, and the 512 gig, the one I have, is $1,400. By anybody's measurement, that's a lot of money for a phone. Probably more money than any other phone you might look at, except maybe the foldable phones, things that are very exotic. On top of that, if you get Apple Care, which you probably should if you have a $1,400 phone, Apple Care is another $200 on top of that. So $1,600 for a flagship 512 gig iPhone 12 Pro Max. Now you can get it a little cheaper than that if you do the iPhone upgrade program where you can get a new phone every 12 months. But in that case, you're really renting the phone. You're not buying the phone. So it's something to keep in mind that if you want one of these 12 Pro Maxes, it's an expensive phone right off the bat. It's more expensive than just about any other phone Apple sells. Probably is more expensive, I guess. $1,600. That's a lot of money. Well, since it's not the newest phone on the block anymore, there are specials available now. Here's one, for example, AT&T offering up to $700 off if you trade in an old phone. Other carriers have other similar types of plans, but that tells you that if they can afford to take $700 off of the price of a phone, there's a whole lot of markup built into this price. And so, is it overpriced? Absolutely. Does that make it worth it? Can it still be worth it if it's overpriced? Maybe. Depends on your use case and what you want to use the phone for. But if they can take $700 off, there's a lot of room for profit in this phone. The first most obvious characteristic of the iPhone 12 Pro Max is the size. It is a slab. It's a huge phone by most people's definition of size, but that's really subjective. In my mind, in my hand, it fits pretty good. It's very comfortable. It fits in my jeans pocket with no difficulty. It is a little heavier than previous phones, but size-wise is completely relative to each person. If you feel like this phone is too big for you, it's too big for you. If it fits comfortably in your hand and you have no trouble using it and you like the size and the weight, then it's not too big for you. So I don't find this phone to be difficult to use, difficult to carry, or difficult to manage. Sometimes it does take two hands if you don't want to use the reachability gesture, which sort of shrinks the screen down. Then you may have to use two hands with it. And if that's a deal breaker for you, then something to think about. But overall, the size is a plus, and it's a benefit to people, especially maybe older folks who like to have a bigger display, or men with bigger hands who need a bigger phone, or women with bigger hands. Whoever has bigger hands, if you like having a bigger hand, a bigger phone to fill your hand, then this fills the bill. The screen is not any higher resolution, but it is much bigger. So you have a bigger, crisper image than you would have with the smaller phones. By comparison, the iPhone 12 Pro Max, shown here with an iPhone 11, it's quite a bit bigger. You can see just from the size comparison there that there's more phone to it, but it's not gigantic by comparison. It's just notably larger. So if you're looking for a bigger display, take a look at one at the store, see how it fits your hand, see how it fits in your pocket. If you think it's not too big, it's definitely not. I find it completely comfortable, and I enjoy having the phone be the size it is. I would not want to go to a smaller one. Your mileage may vary. Try it out and see what you think. The display on the iPhone 12 Pro Max is a 6.7-inch OLED panel, and it's completely acceptable. I have not found any problems with it in terms of visibility in daylight, in terms of contrast, in terms of brightness. The screen is comparable to a lot of other top line phones in many ways. The quality is great. You're never going to look at it and wish you had a better display. There's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly acceptable. Now, that being said, sometimes you expect more than perfectly acceptable from a top of the line flagship phone. There are some things that this screen could do better compared to other flagship phones, and there is at least one problem with this phone for many people, and that is sort of a green tint that shows up on them. Apple has acknowledged this as a problem. They've released an update that may try to fix it, and this is not a new problem. This happened with the iPhone 11 as well. It's related to the panel manufacturer. Hopefully, this new iOS update will take care of that, but it remains to be seen. The panel is not perfect, but it does a fine job. The most glaring omission with the panel is the fact that it still uses 60 hertz refresh rate, and most other flagship phones from other manufacturers have all gone to 90 or 120. And while you don't notice that when you're using the iPhone, if you use one of the other brand of flagship phones with the higher refresh rate and then come back to Apple, you do notice that it's not quite as buttery smooth. And I mean, that's very subjective, but the fact is it's not as nice as the other displays present. Whether that's a big problem for you or not, if you've never had it, you won't miss it. But if you ever do expose yourself to it, you'll realize it could be improved. And I expect that in the iPhone 13, we'll see a higher refresh rate on Apple phones as well. It's fairly typical for Apple to wait an extended period of time before introducing new technologies like that. Not sure why they drag it out, but they do. About half the time, I keep my iPhone 12 Pro Max in a snap on case, sort of an inexpensive, cheap rubber case. And about half the time, I carry it with no case at all. It's just more convenient, and I like the style of the phone. The phone has proven to be very durable. You can tell by looking at it here after 6 months of use in my pocket, in a case and out. There's fingerprints on the phone, but there's no scratches on the display. There's no scratches on the back. There's no scratches on the lens. In general, the phone looks pristine, and that's with daily use and a lot of use. It's not protected well. It's just used daily, and it's held up very, very well. The ceramic shield technology that Apple claims in this version is supposed to make it 4 times more drop resistant than previous versions. I actually dropped an 11 Pro Max off of a 10-foot ladder onto a concrete floor with no case, and it didn't phase it. So these phones are definitely tougher than they used to be. I don't recommend that you do that on purpose, but this phone shows almost no sign of wear and tear from 6 months of daily use, and I think that's admirable in a phone that's glass. I mean, this thing is tough and it holds up well. I don't suggest you carry one without a case, even though I do. But however you protect it, it seems to hold up pretty well. The camera is one area where the iPhone 12 Pro Max has really been improved over previous models of the iPhone and also over even the 12 Pro models. Night mode, the computational mode, has been expanded for both wide and ultra wide lenses. Night mode portraits can use the built in LIDAR sensor to help focus faster and get a better photo. But even though night mode has been expanded, the sensor in this phone is 47% larger than the 12 Pro sensor, according to Apple. And what that means is you can get better low light or night photos without using night mode. So that means you'll have less grain, you'll have a better photo, a better optical quality photo. Um, that's a big one. That's one of the areas where a more flexible camera gives a creator or a photographer more benefits, more options to generate better content. I briefly mentioned LIDAR. That LIDAR focus essentially is using a laser range finding mechanism, and it's like 6, 7 times faster than traditional focusing. The lens has been upgraded. It's essentially a f1.6 lens, which is a fast lens for low light. The image stabilization has been improved in this model. They actually stabilize the sensor, I believe, instead of the lens. But in any event, it's much improved stabilization. The camera can work in Dolby Vision, another option that's a very pro type feature. The optical zoom has been expanded. It can now do 2.5 times optical zoom. So these kinds of features are nice to have, and if you're a prosumer and you like seeing your work look the best it can, you might enjoy having these features. If you're a content creator, if you're a professional photographer, these are the kinds of things that make this phone more useful to you and perhaps worth that extra money. That's a personal decision. Do you need these things? Can you get by without them? Can you get a good photo or good video in most situations with a more inexpensive phone? Absolutely. But if you need the maximum flexibility, or if you're a gadget guy and you like playing with all the latest options, these are areas of the phone where you will see a significant difference from earlier models and previous versions. Battery life is one area that I was concerned about with the 12 Pro Max. I actually upgraded from the 11 Pro Max, which had excellent battery life. The battery in the 12 Pro Max is actually a little bit smaller than the battery in the 11 Pro Max. I was concerned that that might translate into lower battery life. But in reality, battery life has been completely outstanding. It's exceptional. I can go all day long, 10, 12-hour day, using the phone steadily and still get home at night with 20, 30% of battery left. The battery life has been outstanding, and even though I'm 3 months into using this battery, the battery life indicator with the smart charging function turned on shows that I'm still at 100% battery life. So very little degradation has occurred on that battery so far. I don't have any battery worry at all during the day. In the past, I've used battery cases or using a charger at the office to top up the battery when needed. But there's just no anxiety for battery life with this phone. Battery life is completely exceptional. 5G is one of the noted features that the iPhone 12 has. For the first time, Apple has a 5G phone. And this may prove to be a big deal at some point in the future, but in my opinion, right now, 5G is essentially a non feature. When I first brought the phone home at the end of last year, 5G speed tests were actually slower than LTE speed tests. I attribute this to the fact that there weren't many 5G towers around, not much infrastructure to support 5G. Since then, 5G has improved. It's now comparable to LTE, maybe slightly faster in some upload and some download functions. But in general, there's not a whole lot of difference between 5G and LTE. Now, this is with AT&T in Tennessee. I'm sure over time this is going to improve and become a very, very useful feature. But right now, sometimes I just turn it off because it really doesn't offer any advantage in most speed options. And 5G does take a little more battery life away from you. So in the future, this is sort of a future proof option. It'll help you in the future. But right now, there's just not much advantage at all to having 5G. I don't consider it to be something that most people will find much value in at all. The iPhone 12 also includes a LIDAR sensor. LIDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging, is basically a laser distance measuring tool. It's kind of like Face ID's big brother. Face ID also uses a laser and projects points to identify you up to about 2 or 3 feet. LIDAR can project a grid as far as 15 or 16 feet and measure that distance accurately in 3 dimensions. Here you can see I'm using the LIDAR sensor to create a 3D point scan of the kitchen. And this is a point scan that can be turned into a point cloud, and used in 3D modeling tools, 3D printers. It's a very powerful mechanism for creating accurate measurements of 3D spaces. This sensor is also used, as I mentioned, on the camera to detect distance for focusing your camera. In the future, this sensor is going to be even more useful and powerful than it is today when it comes to artificial reality or augmented reality. So much like 5G, this is a feature whose benefit is just scratching the surface. You'll see a lot more uses for this kind of technology in the future. The iPhone 11 had cellular radios from Intel, which generally are not regarded as highly as the cellular radios from Qualcomm, which the iPhone 12 Pro has included, Qualcomm chipset. These chips are highly rated in the industry. Apple actually may be inventing their own cellular radios for iPhone 13, so we'll have to see how that goes. But for right now, the Qualcomm radio chipset is an advantage for the iPhone 12. Great call quality, great 5G speeds, generally an excellent radio. Well, if you've made it this far into the video, I guess you've determined that I feel like the iPhone 12 Pro Max is an excellent phone. It certainly has room for improvement. It has some things that we should see in a flagship phone that are missing. Hopefully we'll see those this fall with the iPhone 13. Overall, this phone is targeted for anybody who needs literally a pro level phone. Photographers, content creators, tech gadget junkies, anybody who likes to have the latest technology and play with those tools to create new content. This phone is for you. If you're not a photographer trying to push the envelope a little bit, you can get by with the 12 Pro just fine. You don't need to spend the extra money on the Max. If you have the money, if you like to play with the latest toys, if you're looking to push the envelope with content creation, there's probably not a better device for you than the iPhone 12 Pro Max right now. So take a look at it if you haven't already. Prices are dropping now that it's no longer the new kid on the block. It's worth your time, and if you can get it for a discount, probably not a better iPhone available. That about wraps up my 6 months hands-on review of the iPhone 12 Pro Max. I hope you found it interesting, useful, maybe even entertaining. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button. That really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm, lets them know they should show this video to other folks. Hit that subscribe button if you're not a subscriber, and hit that notification bell so you'll be alerted when new videos are posted to this channel. I'd really appreciate that. If you have any comments or suggestions about this video or things I said or maybe missed, leave them in the comments below. I enjoy interacting with people who view the videos, and if you leave a nice comment, not a troll comment, I'll be sure and respond to you, and we can have a conversation in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.